Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Dinkins. I am an artist and professor who is looking at artificial intelligence, and I say I'm doing that through the lenses of race, gender, aging, and our future histories. I'm clearly coming at this from a humanistic perspective. Um, and I think my way of getting at intelligence is to tell you a little bit about why I'm looking at it, right? So I began my journey in AI really by happenstance. I ran into a robot, a female humanoid robot who is socially engaged, who happened to be a Black woman, who really perked up a lot of questions in me about the future, the technological future, about who's in that future, who's funding that future, who's programming that future. And since 2014, when I met this robot, I've been asking these questions and trying to get closer and closer to these ideas of what intelligence in machine learning systems means and how it becomes and how it enacts in our world, in our space. And the way I've been getting to know this better is really by making, right? So as an artist, I've started as an artist novice to tinker in the space of machine learning, to try to figure out what I can actually accomplish as someone who is not trained as a coder, but someone who's really interested in adding intelligences that they know intimately into systems and seeing if those intelligences can sustain themselves. And so what I'm really saying here is I have been working to and want to imbue machine learning systems with the values, the kind of care and generosity that I have found in my family unit. So I'm trying to make a memoir of my family that's based on 3 generations of women talking to each other and doing oral histories, using that as data and as intelligence for a system. It's been a long journey. And it's really interesting because it's been a process of discovery. And I've started to learn a few things that are quite interesting. A, the technology is really, really young. Um, and that we are often faced with versions of natural language processing technologies. So, like your Siri or your Google Home or Alexa, that you can ask questions and get an answer, that are giving us answers, but they're very much based on input by others, right? So, question and answer systems. And I'm more interested in thinking about how do we preserve a set of values? Um, how do we preserve a way of being in the world? And especially those things when they sit outside of the center of society, right? So, being a Black woman in America, I think about how communities on the fringes of not only general population, but as particularly of making in fields like artificial intelligence, how do we start to hold on to the things that we feel are really important, the intelligences, the knowledges that we feel are important and need to hold on to, and think not only for our community's sake, but I think this is for the sake of all of us. So my idea is just to try to do it. And I really encourage everyone to start thinking about what intelligence might mean to them and how they start to keep those stories if we're headed more and more towards systems that are mediating our world. How do we make sure that our stories, our ways of being, are not homogenized out of the systems, but are added into the systems in the face of systems that are generally prepared by a really small subset of society? And my answer is do it. Let's craft it. Let's try it. I know it's hard. I'm a photographer who is now working in code and working with others. I'm also thinking about intelligences in the idea of what does it look like for machine learning systems and all these systems that we are making that are becoming really a global mesh for society, right? For the way we take care of each other, the way we um, adjudicate each other, the way we do many things. How do we make them and can we make them with ideas of care at center, right? Caring for each other, with ideas of stories that are whole and hold all of us, right? How do we make sure that all of our stories get in? And how do we make sure that these systems have something like a grace, or at least they kind of, you know, really push us on the human side of things towards a grace towards both each other, the systems we are making, and those intelligences that live in that system. It's become increasingly clear to me um, that not only folks who are in the field, but those of us who are just touched by or who use these technologies need to be thinking about them. And really, I say that we can't afford, right, to simply consume these systems. We have to think about um, how we're using them, how they're shaping us, what intelligences, what knowledges, what ways of being are going into them, and how we as people who don't know deeply the systems might guide those systems. And maybe that just means, you see something or feel something within a system that does not feel right, and you call it out and ask those who are making to do something about it. And I think that machine learning systems are becoming so prevalent. They are all around us. So that it's super important that we understand our role and that we understand that we can have and take a role in trying to guide those systems, make sure ethics are being talked about, make sure policy is being talked about, making sure that our communities are a part of systems in terms of the values we hold, and what we'd really like to see in the AI future.